Welcome back to Season 2 of That's So Second Millennium, the Catholic Science podcast, where we look forward to the new synthesis in the new millennium between faith, philosophy, and science. This is episode 62 of That's So Second Millennium. Today we're very happy to have Jonathan Lunine, the Vice President of the Society of Catholic Scientists, on the podcast to do one last preview here as we are entering the final countdown to the 2019 Society of Catholic Scientists Conference on the topic of what does it mean to be human. So we'll get his insights on the society, how it's grown so far, and how this current conference came together. We are really grateful to have Jonathan Lunine on the podcast today. He's a prominent planetary scientist. He teaches at Cornell. He's a member of the National Academy of Sciences. He's won a Urey Award in planetary science and holds a number of other academic distinctions. He's worked with the radar and other instruments on the Cassini mission to Saturn. He's a co-investigator on the Juno mission, now in orbit at Jupiter, as well as on the MISE instrument for the upcoming Europa Clipper mission. He's on the science team for the James Webb Space Telescope, which will focus on characterization. His part will focus on characterization of extrasolar planets and Kuiper Belt objects. He holds, he's really prominent planetary scientist, and we're really grateful to have him not only on the podcast, but as a member of the board and vice president of the Society of Catholic Scientists. Dr. Lunine, now, as you'll note if you read the liner notes, I'm recording this as an emergency supplement to the episode, so this is not live. I'm splicing into the live part of the episode. But, Dr. Lunine, tell your side of the story of the beginning of the Society of Catholic Scientists.
Steve had been thinking about this for a while. I didn't know that, but I had, over a period of a year or so, thought that some sort of a society that would help to encourage particularly young scientists to maintain their faith in what is an increasingly, I think, hostile world to the idea of individuals who both have religious faith and are scientists, that we needed such a society, and in particular one that catered to Catholics. And so I had read an interview with Steve in America magazine and thought that it would be interesting to contact him. And so I did. And it turned out that we indeed were both thinking in the same direction.
Yeah, indeed, and it's begun succeed. It's succeeded surprisingly delightfully well.
It's been a remarkable success. It took us a couple of years to set up the society. One of the things that Steve felt was very important was that we be an official organization in the church directory, and that we go through the process of having a bishop moderator and having bylaws that had been vetted through canon law. And initially I thought, well, why are we going through all this trouble? But it turns out that it's an extremely wise move, because it shows that this really is an organization that is not only a Catholic organization, but is really through its members in full communion with the church. So that process was long but successful, and as soon as we became an official organization, the membership numbers began to climb, and we are well above 1,000 members at this point.
That's great.
Yeah, that's amazing, and it's a beautiful thing. So you've been on the board from the beginning. So what in those the bylaws that the SCS has, what does the board do day to day, month to month, in terms of working, making sure the society is working? What is the work that it's doing right now?
Well, to understand that, I think we have to review the purpose of the society, and there are really four different elements to the purpose. One is to foster fellowship among Catholic scientists. Second is to witness to the harmony between the vocation of scientist and the life of faith. The third is to be a forum for discussion, reflection, questions concerning the relationship of science and the Catholic faith in particular. And then to act as a resource for educators, Catholic pastors and lay people, journalists, members of the general public who have questions about this. So in doing this, of course, we're not speaking for the Catholic Church or for all Catholic scientists as a whole. We are speaking to the extent that the whole society is speaking for our own members, but hopefully reflecting what is a very clear and definitive message that science and faith are two sides of a coherent and harmonious life, if you will. So the board itself is essentially the management of the society. We manage and control the affairs of the society. We have been, along with some volunteers from the general membership, planning the meetings in terms of the themes of the meeting and selecting speakers, doing the organization for the meeting. We've been setting up various other activities, including a website and a question and answer forum that has been moderated for us by one of our members. And as well, essentially looking for opportunities for publicity for the society that will allow us to obtain new members and to keep the society growing. Now, our goal is to be able to generate enough committees of members that a lot of these day-to-day activities will be conducted by the membership rather than by the board, with the board having fiduciary oversight of these. We have been focusing on getting our meetings going, our annual meetings going, and our membership rolls up. And I think we're at the point now where we will transition to a broader base of active involvement by the members themselves.
Yeah, that's a goal, and hopefully we'll talk about that more at the membership meeting at the conference coming up on June 9th. So what's the biggest challenge right now? It probably, a lot of it sounds like probably just the bandwidth of the board and the need to get to transition to having more of the membership involved with different aspects of the outreach.
Bandwidth is probably the biggest challenge. All of us are busy with our academic and scientific lives as well, and it's a standard flaw of the academic to take on more than he or she can actually do. We want to try to avoid that. Given the size of our membership now and the rapid growth of the society, making sure that we are able to engage our members effectively and get people involved in doing things, while they're interested and while they have the enthusiasm of new members, I think is the other important challenge at this point.
Yeah, having some structure to latch on to is very helpful for everything from your Knights of Columbus Council on up to something like this in terms of having something for people to do.
Yeah, organization is everything.
It helps an awful lot. That's why we're not Quakers. To some extent. So you alluded to the role of the board and other members in choosing the topics for the conference. So could you discuss a little bit how we came to, so the topic, of course, for this year's conference is what does it mean to be human? At what point did that idea first get broached, and how did that get to be selected as the topic?
When we started with our first conference, which was 2 years ago, that topic, which was origins, kind of came up naturally given the composition of the board, which consists of essentially 4 physicists and 3 biologists. And so that was an easy one. And then we felt that having done a conference that was very much astronomical and physical in some ways, that we wanted to explore the questions about the human mind. And so the conference last year held at Catholic University was devoted to that and to the question of, whether mind, in fact, is something that's explicable purely in terms of matter, or is in fact more than just the meat that's inside the head, if you will. And so having had a successful conference on that topic, we thought we could go in a couple of different directions. We could go back to the physics and the astronomy, maybe talk about questions of life elsewhere, or we could explore a topic that has tremendous societal impact and relevance directly today, and I think is becoming even more relevant as we watch the various debates that go on in our own country in particular about life and when life begins and so forth. And that is, what is it that really makes us human? Are we simply animals with a sophisticated enough neurobiology that creates self-awareness and the illusion of free will, if you will? Or is there a soul that has been implanted by God that makes humans unique among the creatures of his creation? And so we found that we could get quite an exciting group of speakers on that topic, and so we definitely had to go there. Even though I love talking about looking for life elsewhere in the cosmos from a science point of view, this was really, I think, the right time to do this topic.
Yeah, the right time, arguably as soon as possible. Yeah, definitely.
Yes.
Yeah, it is critical. It is, we're doing it all over the place, and of course, in the immediate aftermath of the controversy over the Chinese scientists, editing the genes of twin girls.
Yes, that's right. Yep, designer babies.
Yep, it's already begun. So we have, what is it, 3 or 4 or 5 as invited speakers? Somewhere between 3 and 5, I think.
Something of that order. That's right. Yeah.
At least Stephen Niven and Connor Cunningham and Maureen Kondik.
And Marie George, of course.
Marie George,
yes.
Yeah.
Yes, right. And from our own board, Nicanor Austriaco, Mike Flynn giving the banquet address. Yep.
The banquet address. Okay. So quite a number. So and of course a fascinating diversity of people's focuses and specialties, from Marie George and Michael Flynn and Connor Cunningham being more in the humanities, if you will.
Yes. So one of the things that is, I believe, becoming a signature of our meetings, and I have to be a little careful because 2 meetings is not a trend, but we can try to call it that. Yeah, it is, and draw a line through them, is the multidisciplinary nature of our conferences. You could go to a conference on neurobiology, or you could go to a conference on cosmic origins, and you would hear a lot of interesting talks, but I doubt you would hear a philosopher or a theologian get up at some point and give an exposition on the theological or philosophical implications of some scientific point. And so what is unique about our conferences is the real breadth across not just scientific disciplines, but all academic disciplines, including the humanities, while at the same time ensuring that we have excellent speakers and people who are really leaders in their field. And my hope is that as the years go by, if we can maintain this kind of breadth and quality, that we will become known not only for the goals of society, but for the quality of these meetings and the distinctive nature of these meetings that we run.
Bill?
I was going to ask Dr. Given that desire, and this is the time to become better known because of the relevance to society and social issues, I'm thinking about journalists being very interested in covering such conversations. But I'm wondering, you've interacted already with a number of journalists. I know, like with Ira Flato on the Cassini project, etc. But what's your impression of how this conference and the society in general might best be interacting with journalists and vice versa? Is it a natural fit for journalists and the stories that they would want to write?
Well, it's a natural fit for some journalists, but I think that there's the issue, of course, of journalists who regard themselves as science journalists and for which discussions of faith or religion or the implications of the science there too are really out of their purview. And so one has to, I think, woo people into being interested in this area. We've had plenty of success in Catholic and Christian websites and journalists in getting interest and having articles written and so forth. I think we crossing over to the frontier of mainstream science journalism has perhaps been more difficult, but all we need to do is get a mainstream science journalist to come spend some time at one of these conferences, and that will break things open. Having said that, we've gotten quite a lot of press, and I think that the natural interest in these topics in and of themselves, as well as their relationship to faith, has been allowing us to have a substantial amount of publicity.
Fair enough. The number of scientists who find it easy to find the compatibility of religion and science, that's become clear with the growth of the organization. Do you think we might be surprised by the number of journalists who are also interested in making that crossover or examining that compatibility?
Well, it's an interesting question. I don't really know how to gauge that, because my experience with science journalists, and I'm not saying this in a pejorative sense, is that they tend to shape their own style of how they pick stories and how they write things and who they talk to. Particularly the more experienced ones, you tend to see them go back to the same people over and over again for an opinion on something. And in a sense, it's because it's the line of least resistance. This person, you can talk to them. But in another, it's just kind of preferences. And so I think science journalists may, in fact, it may be difficult for science journalists, let's say, to really cross over, if you will, and begin to explore the philosophical and theological side. But we'll see.
Yeah, we can be hopeful. Mm-hmm.
Well, I think I think that's probably a good place to call it for this podcast. And we'll look forward to talking to you again. Hopefully, a little bit about yourself and your career, and we'll also look forward to the conference coming up here in just a week and a half.
Yep, it should be great. I'm looking forward to it. I think it's going to be exciting. Thanks for giving me the chance to talk about it.
Thank you. Thank you once again.
Thank you.
If you enjoyed this episode or one of our previous episodes, please leave us a review on iTunes. iTunes is the biggest distributor of podcasts, and having reviews there will help us reach a wider audience. We would also love it if you posted your review on other services like Google Play and Stitcher as well.